Okay, so we're here at the Cycling Canada Congress here in St. John, Newfoundland, and we're here with Jacques Landry, who's the High Performance Director for the association. Good morning, Jacques. How's it going?
Good morning.
I understand you just gave your presentation to the board, summary of the year, talking about the team, and how about if you give us a brief summary of that so we can get a picture of the season.
Well, I think to start with, it basically presented what we did this past year. I think from a lot of cyclists and cycling enthusiasts in Canada, one marquee event that happened this year was Pan Am Games. We para Pan Am Games and Pan Am Games, and we basically hit the gold rush, if you will, with performances there in all events. So I mean, there's only a few athletes that showed up at the para Pans and Pan Ams that didn't come out with a medal around their neck. So from that standpoint, it was a success. Realizing also from the para athletes and the able athletes having gone to the Pan Am Games and para Pans that these are lower level games compared to the Olympics, but nonetheless, it was for us. Pan Am Games was a good test event, if you will, leading into the Olympic Games. So we basically put everything in position to replicate to a certain degree what the Olympics would be with regards to staffing, with regards to expectations and setting goals. So from the Pan Ams now we move forward to the Olympics and getting ready for that. Aside from the Pan Ams and Para Pans success that we had this year, we have some good rides in every area, basically, whether it be BMX with Tori Nyhog getting some podiums at World Cup levels. Even though he was injured for half the season, he was able to come finish strong in the season this year, and it's boding well for next year. Mountain bike, with our usual suspects, Batty and Pendrell, basically getting some podiums as well, and riding really well over the course of the season. One good rider that's just come out of the woodwork, not really could have come out of the woodwork, we had identified him in the past, but he's really just basically stepped up his game big time, is Raphael Gagné,
sure,
who's had a really good season, and he's really tracking well for good performances in the future. So that's mountain bike is looking pretty healthy, and we've been able to secure a sponsor through mountain bike with Bear Mountain out in Victoria and Langford, which mountain bike will the hub for mountain bike will more and more be in Victoria, back as it was in the in the late 90s, I guess, or early 90s. So Victoria is becoming more and more a hub of mountain bike, with mountain bike and with the city of the town of Langford, and with Bear Mountain. It's looking really good on the mountain bike side. On the track side, we just came out where we're actually, as we speak, the Cali World Cup #1 is happening right now. We've had a couple issues come up leading up to and in Cali, with Gobaret crashing fairly heavily in training a few days ago. Everything's stable. He's good. We don't know when he's going to come back to training, but the important thing is he's in he's in good condition now, and everything's under control. Rémi Beltier-Roy, who we targeted this season to start doing picking up points for the Omnium, crashed a couple weeks ago in training as well. Broke his collarbone. Again, we're monitoring his progress, but we'll see when he comes back on the boards. But right now, in both cases, we've had, because we're building depth in the sprint and endurance programs on the track, we were able to slot our replacements in for this track World Cup. So we'll see how the sprint goes this weekend, but we're looking pretty good on that front. We just basically medaled, gold medal in the women's team pursuit, which is great. But we also have to put things in perspective. The Australians didn't line up this weekend with their biggest team, and with the Brits, even though they didn't make the gold medal round, you can't underestimate the Brits. They always have something up their sleeves. So we just have to keep monitoring the progress continue monitoring our progress of the team, and keep in mind that the other teams are doing the same on their side, and not underestimate them. So that's the track. Monique Sullivan and Kate O'Brien with the sprint program on the women's side are doing phenomenally well. We're looking at how we're trying to make as many points as we can so we can qualify team sprint on that side, on the women's side, as is the case with the men's side. So track on the whole is looking really good, and as as we've said throughout the year, I mean, the Milton Velodrome is a game changer for our track program, and we're really starting to see the rewards of having a velodrome and having an optimized daily training environment with the coaches there and the facility and all the ancillary services that come with that velodrome. So we're really happy about that. So that's looking well. On the road side, we just came out of out of a campaign, World Championships, where we were asked by the road stakeholders to basically try and qualify as many spots as possible for the Road Worlds, which we basically qualified 6 spots on the elite men, 6 on the elite women, 4 on the U23s, 4 junior men, 4 junior women. So probably the biggest team in recent history to be at Worlds. Unfortunately for us, it's cost a lot because we've had to dip into our reserve because we can't really access our federal funding for this. So it's put a kink in our reserve, unfortunately. But I mean, at the end of the day, we did do what we said we would do as far as the road stakeholders in Canada are concerned, and we're proud of that. Now we just have to see what we're going to continue doing next year and the following years with regards to road. We've said from the onset, coming into this quad, that our focus was track, and by default or by extension, road is a focus, because our track endurance program is actually building good road riders. Perfect example is Sean McKinnon, who finished third at the Pan Am Games in the individual time trial, who's a product of our track endurance program. Sure. And actually was the best U23 in the Road Worlds in the time trial as well for Canada. So I mean, for us, it's just a question of patience. We're doing what we're saying we're doing, and but we never said that we would produce good road riders overnight through the track program. It does take time. It does take 4 to 6 years, and in some cases longer. If we model what the Brits and the Australians and New Zealanders have been doing, then it's going to take 4 to 6 years. But we're already 4 years in, and so now we'll start seeing a lot more good road riders coming out of the track endurance program. The gap that we have to just fill basically is what do we do with the outliers or the pure roadies, and that's I guess where a lot of the stakeholders are worried that we're not actually drawing our attention to. The fact of the matter is we don't have funding from federal side to cover that, but we're trying to find some solutions, and that's the important thing.
Very good. So that's a snapshot of the season. Now I know we talked earlier about the test events at Rio, and the mountain bike team was just there, and I think the BMX has happened as well. Tell us a bit about that, about the test events. I understand as well that you've got a new title as the high performance chauffeur in Rio, but tell us a little bit about those test events and your feeling coming into Rio.
Yeah, well, I've been to Rio I think this is the 6th time, so I do have a bit of the lay of the land. So and I've learned to drive in the busy traffic that Rio provides. So I'm fairly comfortable with that. So I'm happy that that's added on to my title, the chauffeur thing. The test events, and we'll talk about paracycling afterwards. But the test events, we decided not to go to the road test event simply because. It's a big investment and for very little return, in the sense that the test events didn't actually host a women's race, and so we figured it's not really the point to go there, so we may as well just focus on where we said we would focus on our medal attention. So that happened in August. We didn't go. We got some reports. We got some data from different sources as to what the road race will look like, so we're solid there. We decided to go the test events for the BMX and mountain bike. BMX was a bit of an issue in the sense that not really the organizing committee's fault. Basically, it was just an issue with the track builder that was contracted out to build the track. So in Rio, and actually the UCI, so the International Federation, just kind of not producing the track that both coaches and athletes want to see. Basically, it was a high risk track where injuries would have happened a lot, and so the riders and the coaches were kind of did a sit-in and decided not to ride the initial presented track, and The issue is that it's becoming, BMX is already a high risk sport, and it's become riskier and riskier because it's perceived as being, the more riskier it is, the more then we're going to attract audiences. And the fact of the matter is, we still have to focus on the racing and make sure it's proper racing, because BMX is basically racing, and it's not X Games either. So that was the test event served a purpose to at least see what the environment looked like for BMX, but knowing full well that the track configuration is going to change almost 75 to 100%. The following weekend, we did the mountain bike test events, which was a success compared to BMX. Track was the course was we brought Emily Batty, Catherine Pendrell, Leon Bouchard came over to try the track. We got a lot of useful data on the course, and all the riders like it, the Canadians, but also a lot of other countries like the type of course, and we're happy with it. And so we're familiarized with the environment. We've got a lot of good, useful information out of these two test events, and it just helps us focus a bit more on where we need to mitigate some gaps that we might see that can lead to the podium performance that we're expecting in those two events. So, is
the mountain bike course, similar in any way to either London or any other courses that you've seen?
Yeah, the course in it's basically the same builders that build London for BMX. For the mountain bike. We're looking at a very rolly course, but with everything, all the features are man-made. From what I got, it's a flowy. It flows really well. Enough climbing, but we could always use more. It is in the sense it looks a bit like London. Obviously, the weather is going to be a bit different. We're anticipating like 24, 25, 26 degrees because it'll be the end of winter for Brazilians, but still around that temperature range, fairly dry. So. Again, it's going to look a lot, from a topographical standpoint, it'll look a lot like London, but from a climate standpoint, it'll be a lot different, obviously.
Yep.
And the next test event that we're focusing on is basically the track, the velodrome. And right now, the track is not yet completed, but I mean, the third weekend of March is when the actual test event is going to happen. So we're basically going to bring a full contingent there to try and get as much information on the track. As you know, each track is different, so we're going to try and get as much data as we can on this track to try and see, basically be able to draw some comparisons with the Milton Velodrome and see what we have to do to actually fine-tune our technical efficiency on that type of track. So we're bringing all as many athletes as we can to not necessarily for performance sake, but just for being able to see how the familiarization sake. So just getting the lay of the land, and so that we can get what I would like to call the Rio out of everybody before we get to Rio, basically. So that's where we are with the test events on the able side. On the para side, there's no test events. But we have done a familiarization of the courses. It's a bit disappointing because they're all flat. The courses are very, very much along the coast, the Baja sector of Rio coast, along the shore, basically out and back. So it's not very technical. It's unfortunate, but that's the way. That's what we have to deal with it and just deal with that fact. Coming to talking about para, I think we touched on the para Pan Ams, the Pan Ams and the para Pan Ams. We only a couple of athletes didn't get the medals that out of the whole team that was there. So I would say it was para Pans were a success as well. Well run by the Pan Am in Toronto 2015, both para and Pan Am games. So again with the para Pan Ams, the expectation is, well, they are the para Pans, so we're not talking the depth of field equal to the Paralympics. So our riders know that. It was basically a dress rehearsal for the Paralympics next year. In the para side of things, performance-wise, we've had some good performances in World Cups and World Championships. We've had a few injuries as well with Ross Wilson, unfortunately, crashing at the Parapans in the road race, but also previously in Switzerland. A fairly bad crash in training that put him out for a while and just brought him just back in time for the Parapans, and then he crashed again, which is unfortunate. But we've since found some strategies to be able to make sure that all our athletes stay as healthy as possible leading into the Paralympics. So it's next year is going to be a pretty important year in the sense that we're still in all our cycling sports still trying to rack up as many points as possible to be able to qualify. Not necessarily the numbers, but the quality of field that we need to qualify to get the performance outcomes that we're looking for. So really the focus is, as one of our coaches calls it, it's funnel vision. Basically we're looking at just this year, or the last year of the quad, we're focusing on Olympic and Paralympic performances. The development programs might take a bit of a back seat, but it's not as though we've never mentioned that before. We will be doing less development initiatives this year because we really need to focus on the performance that we get this year at the Paralympics and the Olympics will basically set the stage for how much funding we get from the federal government in the next 4 years. And from that, if we do get the performance that we expect and the funding that comes in, we will be able to develop more our programs, whether it be road, track, BMX, mountain bike, paracycling, and so on. So really this year is really an Olympic and Paralympic focus, 100%. And we cannot afford to be distracted by anything else at this point in time. We will continue to build our development programs post 2016, but right now it's really looking at our targeted athletes and focusing on their optimal preparation.
How is the Next Gen program going? And I understand I'm hearing good reports on the number of people that are on the track as well. That Steve Bauer, the programs he's running. Talk a little bit about that side.
Well, you have those are two different things. I mean, for us, we have what we're running as a national body is we're running next gen programs. Starting from west going east, we have had a program for the last 2 years now in Victoria, run by Jeff Ain. It is going to take a bit of a shift. This year will be the last year where it has an endurance road focus, or at least road or track focus. This will be the last year. By September 2016, they'll shift totally over to mountain bike, cross country, next gen. So basically focusing on 5 to 8 years out from the podium. So those are the athletes we're targeting. So coming with partnership with Bear Mountain facilitates this next gen program, and so we're looking pretty good on that front. So it's a work in progress, but we're getting better and better, and we're able to actually hone in on fast tracking some talented athletes that we see as being 5 to 8 years out from an Olympic podium on that front. Right now we're looking also at we have 2 next gen programs, hired 2 coaches for the next gen track endurance programs, male and female, with Ian Melvin leading the men's program in the next gen, and Cam Jennings leading the women's program. So these are 2 programs. At least the women's program is just being rolled out now. We have about 5 or 6 candidates or athletes selected into that program, which will eventually feed into the elite program that we have with the Jasmine Glazers and the Laura Browns, etc. So that's looking really well. This will be the first year for this program to roll out. The men's track endurance next gen program, really in essence, it's been rolling. It's been there for about 1.5 years already, with Ian Melvin at the helm. We've seen an increase in time, or a decrease in time, of about 14 seconds over the last 1.5 years since we've taken on the track endurance program in the team pursuit. So we're really doing really well on that front. And the key was basically, and what we're seeing across all our programs is just we just focusing on increasing the work quality of these athletes through a properly regimented daily training environment that has proper volume in their training, proper intensity, but also, and it's the basis of training, incorporating adequate recovery of these athletes. So basically monitoring the recovery so we can best load them up afterwards. So through different initiatives where we basically just make sure that the training modalities are fine-tuned to the needs of the program. Finally, with the next gen programs, we have the para program that's headed by Guillaume Plourde out of Bromont, Quebec. And it's this one's a new one as well. We're just rolling out, so it's basically identifying talent, para-athlete talent that'll eventually, after 2016, try to step into the shoes of some retiring para-athletes as well. So all these, it's important with the Next Gen programs. All these Next Gen programs are partnered by the provincial federation, provincial associations in which those programs are housed, and the provincial, funding bodies as well, and on the podium, and the Canadian Sports Institute Network. So there are good partners behind that. Coming back to the track program with Steve Bauer's Academy, he's doing really good work there. And really, where his academy fits is just, I would say, just underneath. It aligns itself right in the pathway where you have your the academy with Steve, and then the province, and then the Next Gen programs, and then our elite programs. So Steve's doing a lot of good work at the I would say the grassroots level, and initiating good kids into the programs, and so we expect to see some kids coming from Steve's programs eventually in the next few years, being at the forefront of our elite international success. So that's looking good on that front too.
Excellent. Well, a lot of moving parts, Jacques? A lot going on across the country.
Yeah, it's really comforting to see. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of, as you say, a lot of moving parts. But I think it's just a question of coordinating those parts and making sure those parts all flow in the same direction. And that's a continual monitoring of those parts. So it's just I see myself as kind of like just making sure that all the parts are actually turning at the speeds they should be, and the direction they should be. And but also trusting those parts to do their jobs as well.
Absolutely. Well, maybe as well, your new title as chauffeur, high performance chauffeur, will play a part as well in getting those parts moving in the right direction. We want to thank you for taking time with us today and sharing what's going on in the high performance part of the association, and wish you all the best going forward next year. And of course, Rio's a big one, so we hope your expectations are realized.
Well, thanks, Ben.
All the best.